From a patch to add a minimap into Starfield, finally a clear explanation on how space exploration works and how it's basically not what we expected, in both a way that will either disappoint you but at the same time make you kind of excited. To add to that, the reviews are out in the wild for Starfield and the console wars have already begun, with a lot of people saying would these reviews be the same had it had been on PlayStation, and how these major review sites are supposedly purposely not giving the game a high score with the intent to bring down the Xbox community. And lastly, Todd Howard has shared an important message to people who will play this game, after trying to make this game happen for 25 years, right down to just hours left until early access and 6 days from the global launch. We have tons to get through. Also, just for you all to be aware, Instant Gaming is already giving 22% off the digital premium edition plus early access. The link is below, but more on that later. If you could leave a like, it helps a ton, but turn that into a dislike if you get to the end and did not enjoy the video. So first of all, we finally have a clear explanation on how exactly space travel works and how it's basically not what we expected. Now, of course, bear in mind this has been a very big topic the past couple of days, especially with that supposed leak, and well, a lot of people have been 50-50 on it. So this explanation just breaks it down purposely, and to summarize what is said, it is as follows. So players can use the in-game map to choose destinations, but they are confined to a specific location and can't actually fly closer to the celestial bodies like Saturn or the Sun. Now it also feels like you are actually getting closer to, for example, the Sun or Saturn, but it's all basically just an illusion. You actually will never get any closer than you are at that moment in time. No matter how long you just leave the analog up, for example, you can leave it there for hours, you are definitely not going to get any closer than you are already at that moment in time, though it will give you the feeling that you are actually doing so. Now, it does make total sense, but why it has left a lot of questions. Now, you're basically in your own zone, and it does sound like there is just one big invisible wall preventing you from actually getting closer. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section below. Is that something that actually does bother you? Now, Earth and other planets do have debris around them and also some points of interest, which is actually very cool, like space stations or even some ships as well. And you can, fun fact, hit the debris that is actually floating about, which I personally think is cool, because there's probably going to be various debris that you do actually come across that are probably going to, I guess, contribute different levels of damage, so to say. So I think that'll be interesting as you kind of move around in different planets or zones, if you will. Now, players can't unfortunately free roam on planets. They can only move a certain distance away from their ship before encountering the invisible walls. Now, this does seem to be sparking a lot of confusion and debate, but I personally feel it's all done within reason. Now, of course, based on the rumors we had earlier this week, that's where the concerns initially started, but I think this really boils down to a personal preference more than anything, simply because some of the other people are actually completely fine about it, whereas some, I guess you could argue, did expect a bit more in that regard. Now, I guess as well, this always does boil down to density of a location more than anything else, such as the size, but let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Is it something that you were kind of expecting to actually just be able to freely roam, or are you not so bothered if there is actually density? Let me know in the comments below. Now, docking with space stations is possible, but players are still limited in their movement around them. So overall, there are going to be a lot of comparisons as well to games like No Man's Sky, but equally, I think it's good that there have been things that are clearly different, even if they are questionable, like a few things I've just mentioned. But I guess it really is going to be one of those things where we can see if they are going to expand on certain aspects as well. And I mean, there's just so many elements that this game is going to have added into the game post-launch. I'm not just talking about the modding community, but I mean people on Xbox and what we could potentially see in updates. So it really does boil down to various factors, but overall, the scores are where things are getting interesting. Now, I've linked the video in the description if you want to know more on this, but credit to the creator who actually shared the info. Now, a patch to add a minimap into Starfield, reviewers purposely, supposedly giving low scores to bring down the Xbox community, and an important message from Todd. But before we continue, today's video is sponsored by Instant Gaming, the site that gives you the best and hottest games out right now for up to 70% off on any platform instant, no pun intended. For example, you can get Hogwarts Legacy right now for 27% off, not to mention the deluxe edition for 25% off. But it's not just games that are out, you can also save yourself a bunch of money on pre-orders too. The best part of it all is it's just a simple click to order, head out to the checkout, and in a matter of minutes the code for the game on whatever platform you chose would have landed in your mailbox ready for you to download, and they even have support available 24/7. One thing that I have to say I love the most, however, is the variety. From PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo, the catalogue of games they have is truly extensive. Now you can get PSN cards as well at, you guessed it, a discount. So check out Instant Gaming and use my code to save yourself even more right now. The link is in the description below. So is it possible for a patch to add a minimap into this game? A post that somebody did make on Reddit that says the following. So from all the reviews I've seen so far, one of the major complaints seems to be how the game is kinda overwhelming because of the lack of a minimap. I know there are many people that prefer this due to the immersion, but I do feel like it would be nice to at least have the option. So my question is it possible for Bethesda to add in a minimap with later patches? I don't really know anything about game development, so I don't know if this is like a relatively small patch or if they'll actually have to do some major work to add such a feature. Regardless, I'm sure modders will eventually add it. Edit. Minimap was the wrong word to use since Bethesda games never really do minimaps. What I meant was a map that you can bring up in Skyrim or the Pip-Boy map in Fallout. There's nothing like that for Starfield. Now that's actually a very valid point. I understand the immersion aspect to it and how you actually want to feel like you're just in there just kind of roaming around, etc. But I do think that for people that genuinely just don't want that, there should be an option to toggle something like that. Again, I'm keen to know your thoughts on this, so do let me know in the comments below. But one thing that I think is very interesting is we know undoubtedly that is going to be one of the first mods. But at the same time, some people are saying they're not actually sure why people expected it. So is that just really asking for too much, or should it have just been a standard where, again, it's not necessarily just a mini-map, but something like in Skyrim or of course in Fallout, to where you can actually just have some sense of navigation. Also worth noting, someone did mention that the whole point of this game is exploring largely unexplored worlds. So how would having a minimap of a world that by definition hasn't actually been mapped? So again, there is the aspect of quote-unquote realism, so to say, but I don't know, I guess it's one of those things again that come down to personal preference. Now, someone else also posted on Reddit, do you think there's any truth to this? And that is that IGN probably receives way more outrage traffic by giving Starfield a 7, and how the whole intent is to actually drag the Xbox brand down. So this actually comes from the Xbox era co-founder Nick, who says he's convinced that no gaming outlets want to give Starfield high scores, and he argues other sites have already decided to give the game a 7 to 8.5 in order to generate traffic, and also with the intent to actually drag the Xbox brand down. Now, there's been a lot of conversation in terms of Game of the Year and how that's basically out of the window based on these scores, which again is very much a debatable topic, but I think there is some sense of truth in what's going on right now, and this is coming from my opinion, my brutally honest opinion if you will. And I do feel that we are in the era now where a lot of exclusive games are kind of being biased in some sort of way, but I think as far as reviews goes, had it had been on PlayStation, as in a PlayStation exclusive, or on PlayStation, on Xbox, and basically every platform out there as far as the main ones go, then I do think that things would have slightly been different. I think what things like exclusives do, especially when they are as big as Starfield is it really does spark up that debate, and it really does spark up that controversy between the console wars, so to say, and is it being done intentionally versus not. But from everything we've seen, even though the scores are as they are, I think it's probably best to actually just let the dust settle, because scores coming out the gate right now are great. You're seeing some nitpicking for the most part as well in some, but I think it's best to actually just let that dust settle and then actually see where things stand in the next couple of days, and then of course with the official launch of the game when every single person can review it. Now we do have a letter that Todd Howard has sent Starfield reviewers, and it's actually an important one. So the letter says the following: "In my 30 years of making games, I don't actually recall adding a personal letter to early copies of a game. Then again, we've also never made a game like Starfield. It seems like forever ago that I started talking about making a grand space RPG. It never seemed feasible, and we had been very lucky enough to create games we, and many others fortunately, loved in the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series, yet we couldn't shake the idea of exploring the galaxy in ways that only video games could do, and so we took the leap to create not just our first new IP in over 25 years, but our most ambitious. We did our very first Starfield concept art back in 2013, just over 10 years ago, and initial development started with a small team right after Fallout 4 in late 2015. Concepting, designing, and building a new technology for what we were dreaming of took much longer than we anticipated. By 2020, we had the team at its full production size of 275, just as the world turned upside down with, of course, what we know happened at that time. We had to work in all new ways and adapt to many changes to our lives, including the passing of our company's founder and becoming part of Xbox. There are many days where we thought the game may never exist, that we had certainly bitten off far more than we can actually chew. Development is never a straight road, it's often a winding and treacherous path, and I could not be prouder of the team's continued passion and dedication to create something truly special. We couldn't have done it without the incredible support we were given from everyone at ZeniMax and Xbox. We also had the support of many development partners, and a special thanks to those who translated and recorded all 3 million words in other languages, which is just insane, by the way. I just want to quickly add. It then continues to say, on behalf of everyone at Bethesda, thank you as well. Thank you for taking the time to play. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and adventures with the world. We are beyond excited and honestly a little nervous and anxious to hear about all of them. Creating this game has been one of the most challenging and thrilling experiences of our careers, a journey we'll never forget. And as we come to the end of this chapter, we pass it along to you, where the real journey can now begin. Yours. We hope it's as rewarding as ours. All our best, Todd Howard. Now, I mean, it's safe to say he seems really proud of Starfield, and I do genuinely just feel when you hear a dev of a game speak of their game like this and they're just completely adamant that this game is what it is and nothing less, then that is absolutely a great sign. Because no matter the crazy or wild reviews we'll see in the coming days, and potentially even on the global launch of the game when every single person outside of early access can play the game, I think that the game will genuinely be one of those games that will just improve, especially a lot more than it was at the launch, despite it being already good, so it seems anyway. I think it's really going to be one of those games that aren't just here for a couple of months or even a year and then just collects dust. Now, with Starfield actually taking the spotlight and of course shining as bright as it currently is, don't forget that Spider-Man 2 is also just around the corner. So games that are competing for Game of the Year, and especially talking about exclusivity, the race is on to an extent. But also, a dev just confirmed that you can actually do something in Spider-Man 2, which has actually got a lot of fans very, very excited. So check out the video that you see on screen right now.